I'll be the first to admit that there are plenty of times that I would really rather just go and lie down and catch a nap. And I'll tell you right now that there are many times that when that's true, that I know that that's just not something that I'm going to be able to do. And this is why I chose today the subject of taking on responsibility for the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Saturday, July the 3rd of 2021. Welcome to everybody who's here on Rumble on the podcast on YouTube. Thank you for coming along today. And again, the subject for today is taking on responsibility. I'm going to read my notes real quick, as I tend to do. I can't adult today. That's what so many people choose periodically for a meme, sometimes more often than not. Without folks to take on responsibility, though, nothing gets done. It's way easier to say tomorrow or even sometime down the road. But if you refuse to take on responsibility, you're going to find the world gets harder and harder to deal with. Like it or not, those currently acting in responsible ways are not going to live forever. They're not getting any younger. They're not going to live forever. Frankly, as we get older, we tend to become less able to do things that need done. We may even come to the point where memory and mental acuity actually fail us. Like it or not, we must step up. This is the end of my notes. You have to understand that the older you get in life, the more you sort of become that person that other people are looking up to and have expectations of. I don't oftentimes like the fact that that's true, that I'm the guy that people are going to look at and go, yeah, this is the person who we need to be looking at as our example of how things need to be done. Nonetheless, it is what happens. It's not going to stop being that way. In fact, it kind of gets worse until you get to the point where you just can't do it anymore. Yeah, it's true. Some people actually retire and they quote get out of it that way. Okay, I acknowledge that. I accept that. But my point is this: every day, more and more people come into the world. I'm not saying that the population necessarily is exploding. I'm more saying that the point is that there are younger people who are reliant on older people because they don't know how to and cannot do those things that must be done. Now, obviously, one of our biggest challenges is to get those people into places where they learn how to do the things that need to be done. But in the meantime, somebody has to take on the challenge of dealing with the world as it is today and needs to continue to improve the lot of people around the world so that society becomes or continues to be a good place to be. I'll put it that way. Hopefully becomes a better place, but the point is at least continues for people to be able to live up to the standards that have been set in past. And as a rule, there's no reason that can't happen. Now, to be fair, a part of what you have to do is learn to take responsibility not just for doing things, but for getting others into positions where they can do things that need to be done. Okay? This is an important part of life. It's an important thing. If you try to do it all yourself, in the long run, what's going to happen is those people who need to follow after you because you won't be around forever will not learn what they need to know in order to do the things that need done. And maybe that's a good thing at times. Maybe sometimes what happens is a person doesn't learn your way and makes better ways to do business. Okay, great. But I want for you to understand that a lot of times that's just not the case. A lot of times what happens is people have to reinvent the wheel because they weren't privy to the things that made the work easy, and it makes it so less work gets done as a result. But the point is, at one level or another, those of us who are getting older must take on the responsibility for those who are no longer able to shoulder it. Okay? And quite frankly, we need to start taking on the responsibility for those who are, with the idea that at some point in the future, and we never know when, they may not be able to do the jobs that they've been doing in past. I knew a guy who worked at a place that I worked in past, and I won't go into too much detail on it except to say that individual, I guess, probably fell asleep behind the wheel of his vehicle and wrecked his vehicle. Well, that was bad, but the fact of the matter is he went to the hospital, and I'm pretty sure he was perfectly fine. He was in his seatbelt, and so he didn't get thrown from the vehicle. He didn't die even if the vehicle got messed up. It's bad that he lost the vehicle, right? But what was the worst thing? It was that he was the only person who knew how to do certain things in that company. And those things basically just ground to a halt. Some people didn't even realize that things weren't being done, right? And it's not that they weren't important things. When somebody cleans your toilet, you don't necessarily realize or notice that that's happening, but it's still happening. And you don't think that's important? Let that toilet get really gross and grody and see what it does to your productivity and so forth. Just like not cleaning out, garbage cans and stuff. Somebody's got to do that job. But there are other jobs that are like that, and those jobs are important jobs and need done. And if you're not willing to learn to either do those jobs or get other people educated in how they're done, what's going to happen is they're going to start falling through the cracks and things are going to start getting bad. The simple reality is, whether you like it or not, what has to happen is we have to begin shouldering at least the responsibility, right? We have to do that. And really, the jobs to start with, and so that we know how they're done. I had a boss years ago, was in the military. He was a lieutenant colonel, good guy, and I came in one weekend to find that he'd done a job that I was supposed to do, and he left a note that just basically said, just wanted to find out how long it would take to do this job. And he did the job, and let me tell you something, he did it right, and there was no reason to have expected that man to do what he did. Responsibility, taking on responsibility is important. You must do it. You must learn how to do it, and you must become responsible for things. And I'll be honest with you, the younger you start taking on responsibility, the more chance there is people at higher levels will actually be able to do things that right now they can't do. If you think you're taking on responsibility is strictly about taking things off of the plate of people who have those things with the idea that they can relax and take their ease, you need to be aware that actually a piece of that is their ability to do things that right now they're unable to do because they have responsibilities that are keeping them from doing those things. This is what you need to understand. There's more to taking on responsibility than just this person is going to be unable in the course of time. There's also the fact that this person, because they don't have to be responsible for this thing that they were responsible for in time past, now has the ability to take on other tasks that they were unable to take on as a result of the fact that they were doing these things that needed to be done. So I don't really care how old you are. You need, as you get older, maybe this is less true, but some past a certain point anyway. But however old you are, you need to start to understand that you have to take on responsibility, and that your failure to do so makes it so that a number of things can happen, many of them catastrophic in nature. This is just something that you need to understand as reality, as truth. And again, it makes it so that people, if you take on that responsibility, it makes it so that people who have been traditionally responsible for given things can move on to work on other things and be responsible for other things that need to be done that currently are not being done. It's really pretty much that simple. So this is kind of my message for you today. Taking on responsibility is important. It is important, and it's important for probably more reasons that I've even stated here. And I'm not going to, work too hard to get into more detail. Just the reasons that I've given really are more than enough to make it so that you ought to be willing to do that. So, to sum up, this is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Saturday, the 3rd of July of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Sunday, the 4th of July of 2021, Independence Day. Thank you for everybody who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. The subject for today has been taking on responsibility, and I really, really urge people to make that what they're doing, Tomorrow we're going to talk about a subject that I think a lot of younger people need to hear more about, and that is having children. Hope you're having a good day today. For those of you who observe the Sabbath, happy Sabbath to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are going good for you in general, and hopefully we'll see you on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Saturday, July the 3rd of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.